Going to your edges. You know what? That could sound kind of scary, or maybe it sounds kind of thrilling, or a little bit of both. That's what I call JoyFear. So going to your edges helps you grow. And here's the thing, when you grow, your business grows. I can't wait to talk to you about this even more. I have lots to share about this today on today's episode of Joyful Business TV. So thank you for being here and welcome. So glad you are here. I'm Laura West and I am the host of your show today. And I'm the CEO and a business success coach at the Center for Joyful Business and at joyfulbusiness.com. So for over 20 years, I have been helping conscious, soulful entrepreneurs who are ambitious and maybe even a little sensitive and highly creative. And they really want to grow their business and share their soul work with the world. And they want to do it. Yeah, this is a great way to make money, right? They'd love to make great money. But they want to do it in a way that's a different way of running their business. Like that there is a new operating system and a new model for how to have our business. And it comes from the inside out. It's all about aligning the inside out and creating an environment that is so authentic, so natural, that you can't help but flourish. So what I really want you to know is that I do believe that you already are designed to flourish, right? It's kind of like the acorn already has everything that it needs inside to grow into this mighty oak tree, right? The sunflower seed is going to be a sunflower, right? And it has everything that it needs, but it needs the right environment, right? It needs the right amount of sun, right amount of rain, right? Same thing for you. We need to create this optimal environment for you to flourish. So that's what our theme throughout every episode. So if you're here live, I want you to know that I'll be talking for the next 30 minutes about our topic around edges, growing your edges, and how that will help you in your business. And then we'll turn off the recording and I'll be here for you and I'll just be here to answer your questions. We can talk about what your edges are and how you can grow and create your own joyful business. So today, we're going to talk about embracing your joy fear and going to your edges. Just let you sit with that for a moment, right? So this is a fundamental truth for entrepreneurs that if you want to grow your business, you have to grow. And that when you grow, then your business has more of a capacity to be able to grow. It's kind of like, if you have kids or your friends have kids and you've probably seen this. You send them off in the summer for a week at camp or at grandma's and they come back and they are not the same, right? They might be physically bigger, but they've expanded, right? They've had new experiences, no matter what that was, whether it was staying up really late or, eating food that you wouldn't feed them or just doing things, being with people they wouldn't normally do. You can visibly see their growth, right? The same kind of thing happens that when you do things that make you feel uncomfortable, this is one of your growth edges, that when you dare to stay the course and move through it, it expands you. It's like it literally, we don't see it so physical like we do with our kids, but it's like it expands ourselves in a way. It expands and creates new neural pathways that, it's like I've started thinking about 3 different thoughts at one time. And it's like 3 different things I want to tell you. And so it's like, new things start getting created, right? And then when you get back, it's like, all right, how do you keep that going, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit too. So in business, it might be something like expanding to an edge, might be creating your first video or publishing your first blog post or newsletter. Even if nobody has seen it or read it yet, you can't put that expansion back into the bottle. You created the first video. You wrote your first newsletter. You didn't die, right? You didn't die. We talked about that in Guatemala. We didn't die in a lot of different ways. Not so much about Guatemala, but really more during the retreat when we did things in the retreat that expanded us and had us be more visible and be seen. It's like we didn't die from being seen, right? That's a really huge thing for a lot of entrepreneurs, is that brings up that fear, that really deep-seated fear. And when you start practicing moving going to your edges and going to your edges and stretching, it doesn't go back. It's kind of like a rubber band that won't go back to its original shape. Once you stretch it, it's just not going to go back to the original shape, right? So recently I went on a trip to Guatemala, and I've been talking a lot about this since I've been back, because I was faced with constant edges on this trip. Me and my travel buddy were really good travel buddies, and we were constantly faced with our edges. It was part vacation, part retreat, and I was just constantly bumping up against my uncomfortable zone, right? And the risk taking. So it started right at the beginning. I've got, the timing of getting the email about the retreat was perfect. It was all about opening your wild heart. It's exactly what I'm doing this year. And so synchronistic, right? So follow the synchronicity, follow the energy. And then the night after signing up for the retreat, buying the flight, my travel friend and I, we're all ready to go. Then both of us ended up looking at the government website for COVID requirements. And we saw this banner: reconsider travel to this country, don't go. That it could be dangerous, and it could be, had high COVID counts. And it was just known for being a dangerous country. So, and then it brought back, all these waves of things I've heard about the country, like, why are all these people leaving the country? And why am I going? And so I really was in kind of paralyzed fear for about 24 hours, like, what was I doing? What was I thinking? Why do I want to go to this country? It wasn't even on my list of, my basket list of things that I want to do, in my life. And then after about 24 hours, there was like this pivotal point, right? This pivotal point where I actually took back my power, right? Instead of sitting there in fear, or sitting there and we're just going to cancel it and not, just throw out this idea. And, but I didn't sit there and steep in the fear very long. And so what I did is I took a step, and I said to the retreat leader, I need a conversation. I'm getting really worried about this. I'm getting a little freaked out, and I need to know about this country. And it was an amazing conversation, right? She acknowledged my fear. And she had also led 4 or 5 retreats in this country before. She'd stayed there for over a month at a time. She has had no problems. And she also had recommendations on how do you book travel between cities? What do you bring? What do you do? What do you don't do, right? How do you be safe? So that kind of calmed me down for a bit. And then I kept talking about it to different people. And I found a friend whose neighbor was a travel agent, whose son used to live in Guatemala, and she had visited many, many times. So as a travel agent, she knew things to look for. And she said the beauty and the people were amazing. And she reassured me, yes, you want to get out of the main city where you land in the airport. Going to colonial Antigua was a really good idea. Like, there's so much beauty there. So that made me feel good. She's booking trips to Guatemala, right? So it wasn't like a place where she didn't book trips. And then the more I shared it with people, right, the more I kept taking baby steps, right, into, closer to my edge, right? I met so many people who've had experiences with visiting this country that were so incredibly positive. A colleague that I've become really good friends with, she's like, oh my gosh, I used to go to Guatemala all the time for my corporate job. I even reconnected with a colleague whose family was in the city of Antigua for a month and was going to be there when we were going to be staying overnight. Like, that was like crazy synchronicities coming up, right? When you dare to go to the edge and take the baby steps and stay there, right? Not just letting yourself steep in the fear and either freezing, because we could have just froze for a couple of weeks, froze for about 24 hours, and then started taking the baby steps. Or sometimes, it's freeze or flight, right? Although we could have canceled without even talking to our person and just be like, nope, we don't want to go. But we stayed, right? We stayed with our edges. And then I started looking at maps of the country, looking at getting familiar with how long does it take to get from the airport to Antigua? And then how long does it take to get to Antigua to the lake where we have to catch a boat taxi? And what the heck is a boat taxi anyways? So I watched plenty of YouTube videos and listened to lots of recommendations and got familiar with, okay, what do I need to wear? What do I need to bring? What do I need to not bring so that I can be as comfortable and prepared as possible? I downloaded helpful apps like a currency exchange app, a translator app. So my high school Spanish may or may not get me through, get me through being able to buy something or being able to get food or order a glass of wine or something like that, right? So I was taking baby steps all the way. So going to the edge doesn't have to mean that you go to the edge and then just leap out into the abyss and hope the net will appear. And that's a really common quote, is to leap and that net will appear. But I also think there's different ways of doing that, right? Like I did leap, right? We signed up. That was our big leap, right? And then we started saying, okay, what do we need to do to be prepared for the big leap to the best of our ability? Because you're not ever going to be prepared for everything. I was constantly, still, even with some of the preparations, I was constantly dancing with what we call in coaching my conscious incompetence, right? There's like where you're conscious about your incompetence, right? Sometimes you're unconscious about, you don't know what you don't know. We go through that phase. And then you get to a point where you're conscious about your incompetence. And it's really uncomfortable, right? For those of us who like to be competent, right? It doesn't feel good to be like, I don't know everything, I don't know exactly, I can't predict how this is going to be, right? But here's the thing, I did the baby steps. I put some structures in place. I knew that I had a friend in Antigua should I need it. I had numbers of other people, those kinds of things. And that helped calm my nervous system so that I could go to these edges. And then still things happened, right? We landed at the airport. We had a sign that had both our names on it for a car service. We get in the car, we're going. All of a sudden I get a message from a colleague and she said, "Hey, Laura, your car service is waiting for you." And there's a guy standing there with my name on it, like waiting for me to arrive and get into the car. And I'm like, oh my gosh, did we get in the wrong car? Are we in the wrong car? Oh my God, we're going to be abducted. All the things start coming back, right? We got all worried. Well, we didn't get worried. I was trying to be really calm and wasn't trying to get my partner all upset, and not quite yet, but she could tell like my face was turning 5 shades of red and she was like, what's going on? Right. So part of it, calming our nervous systems, right? It was incredibly important. When you go to the edges, you got to calm your nervous system, right? So then I started taking baby steps, right? I asked the driver. Turns out he only speaks Spanish, and he kept saying, all he could say was, Antigua, no problema, Antigua, no problema. So we're like, okay, think he's really clear we're going to Antigua, but I still felt like maybe we're in the wrong car. Do we need to jump out? These are things that start going through your head, right? That whole flight, right? Now we were in this not freeze, but we were in flight. And then I remembered, I had WhatsApp. I had the car service on WhatsApp. So I contacted them from the back seat, I'm on WhatsApp, and they assured me, yes, he's one of their drivers. We're in the right car. It was just one of those crazy coincidences that somebody else by my name was landing in Guatemala City with a car service right at that time. So, again, it's not that things don't happen, right? But it's like you prepare the best you can for the leap. And we're going to talk more about this, but it's like, how do you get comfortable with this being uncomfortable, right? How do you get comfortable with being in the JoyFear? We were excited about this trip, right? We were going to stay at this retreat in this villa that's on this lake, Lake Etetlan, that is one of the 20 most beautiful lakes in the world, right? That's something like, wow, that's something to be able to say, my memory bank, yeah, I've done that. And I'm going to this lake that's surrounded by volcanoes. So the joy was there, like the joy that we wanted to experience. And there was some fear getting there. So that's where that JoyFear comes in. And then we got to Antigua, and oh my gosh, the beauty in this little colonial town, not the Antigua, the island. This is Antigua, the former capital of Guatemala. And it's all cobblestone roads, really old buildings, and not even individual buildings. It's like straight lines of buildings, like concrete buildings all the way down the roads. And, they're painted different colors on the outside, and they just have little doors. And there's a teeny little sidewalk that's kind of a sidewalk, kind of potholes, kind of sidewalk, kind of mud. And there's motorbikes and little cars going up and down these cobblestone roads. And then every now and then you'll come up against a door and you kind of peek in, you see, oh my gosh, it's a hotel. And there's this oasis behind the wall, all these colors and textures. It was like our hotel, we went into it. It was like being in Rome or Paris or somewhere European. My friend who was in Antigua, she texted me and she said, Antigua is ridiculously beautiful. And that's how it was. It was ridiculously beautiful. The layers and layers of textures, colors, the warm people. So there was another edge. Like, how much beauty could I stand, right? How much beauty would I allow myself to receive? And that might seem a little, well, how hard is it to receive beauty, right? But here's the thing. One of my favorite books is called The Big Leap. And he talks about, Gay Hendricks talks about how we have set points. We have a thermostat for how much love, success, money that we will allow into our lives. I believe we have a set point. How much beauty will you allow? How much abundance will you allow into your life? So how much beauty could I stand, right? How much would I allow myself to receive? Because then what can start happening is that you start sabotaging, right? In The Big Leap, he talks about how he was receiving this really big award, prestigious, amongst hundreds of people and, among his colleagues. And on the way home, he picked a really big fight with his wife. And then he started getting really curious. He's like, I did this because it was really hard to receive the acknowledgement for that kind of success. And it's really easy to do things like that when you have so much beauty, so much abundance. You can start doing things, where you start getting sick, right? You start getting headaches, or maybe you just start picking a fight with your travel buddy. We didn't do that. Fortunately, that's why we're so good, because we're consciously talking about it and just talking about what we're allowing ourselves to receive. So then, that wasn't the whole thing, right? Then we had this 3-hour ride down to the lake that everybody was saying you have to take Dramamine for because it's so curvy and nauseating. It wasn't so bad on the way there, but on the way back, it was definitely the most nauseating drive I've ever had. And then we arrive, right, at one of this crazy town that has color and flags and banners and people everywhere and merchandise and textiles and color. Just texture, so much. It was just a lot of coming at you, right? And then we get there, and then we're down by the lake. We can see this boat taxi, this boat where you're going to sit underneath, and we can kind of start seeing these big giant volcanoes that are all around the lake. And then these young men come up and they start grabbing our luggage and our backpacks. They don't speak English, right? And they just throw it on top of the boat. And you're kind of sort of you just keep repeating, the man who was Antigua, no problema. We're Villa Samaya, Villa Samaya. We just kept saying it over and over again. They were see. So you get that you're in the right direction, right? Yeah, okay, they told me this is how it was going to be. I'm prepared with my money to tip them and who I need to tip and how and all this stuff. With my Quetzals or my my regular American money. All of that was stretch points, right? All those were stretching, how much money, how much do I tip? You want to treat people right. You want to treat them fairly. You want to be respectful. You want to also make sure my backpack is not going to fly off the top of that boat, right? That kind of thing. So your nervous system is constantly being tweaked, right? And so that's why it's so important to have, ways that you know how to calm yourself and know that you're going through this, right? That it's stretching you. This JoyFear, these edges, they're stretching you. So this JoyFear, where I was excited and anxious, anticipation and anxious for the unknown. It's two sides of the different coins. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Are you anxious or are you anticipating? Because they both have that kind of electric energy, right? And that electric energy is something that you have to deal with in your body, right? So now here's the thing, I want to say one more thing about JoyFear, and then I'm going to bring this over to your business. JoyFear, it's not just about doing things that you're afraid of, I must jump out of the plane because I'm afraid of that. And so I have to conquer all fears. You get to choose, you are the CEO of you, and your business. And you get to choose what feels like a healthy alignment, a healthy challenge. Right? Instead of just crazy challenge, unless you're into crazy challenges and want the adrenaline rush, I've done my things. To me, jumping out of the plane is not so much, but yet, I tandem hang glide off Mount Tamalpais in Northern California. That was my healthy challenge, right? It's not about, it's fine. The JoyFear is not about you must do things that you're scared of all the time that you don't want to do. It's doing the things that are scary, that take you to your edge, that you do want to do, right? That you know there's joy on the other side, that you're going to be proud you did it, that it's something you've always wanted to do, but maybe you've just been sabotaging your way, to taking that first step. So this happens with our business every day, right? I can remember way back, years and years ago when I did my very first video. And I was so nervous and it just felt so weird, being on my phone. And so I did it in my car because somehow I was like contained and it felt a little safer and I didn't have to worry about my background. And then it was like I did another one. And then I did another one. And then I did one at my kids' baseball game and talked about a lesson from baseball. Little by little, it's like I took more and more baby steps, right? Found my way. I was experimenting. I was practicing, going to my edge. And now it's like I do video every week, right? I do this TV show to you every single week where I'm on like 30 some episodes. So, when I think of edges, I often think of the edge of an ocean. A year ago, I just moved back to live back by the ocean again where I grew up. And I just love going to the ocean and seeing just that endless, vast ocean where it's like endless edges, on the horizon. Sometimes you can't even tell where the ocean ends and the sky begins, right? And so in your business, going to the edge is like that. It's like you actually never get to the edge. You never actually get to the edge. It's like the ocean. You don't actually get to the edge. So your first video felt like an edge, right? And then it turns into another edge of doing the second video. And it turns into another edge of being consistent with video. And the horizon edge keeps going. So then next thing you know, your next edge is doing a weekly TV show, right? Something like that. Or maybe it's a podcast. So it's not about conquering the edge, right? It's really about, this is really important. It's really about knowing that the edge, there's always more edges because you're always growing in your business. Or else you're not, if you're not growing, then it's going to start, you're either going to backslide or you're going to grow. But what this is really about, again, this is the really important part. It's about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So in Guatemala, it was trusting myself, trusting that, okay, we're going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be moments where I'm going to want to buy something, and like when I was buying some table runners, and I was uncomfortable because you negotiate, and I'm not a negotiator. That's not my strength. And so I took baby steps, and took little steps at a time, and it was uncomfortable. And then the next time I did it, I'm like, oh, I can negotiate by being silent. Like I can do that, right? So it's like being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? And so that mystery of the edge, the not knowing, the being uncomfortable with the not knowing what is going to come at the edge, that's where the trusting starts unfolding. And the more you go to the edge and get the experience in your body of trusting yourself, trusting that, you can make a decision, you can download an app, you can ask your friend for help, or, you can co-create with whatever shows up. That's where it is. It's like trusting yourself to co-create with whatever shows up. It's not that it's not going to be messy, not going to be scary. Maybe things nobody will watch that video, right? Nobody will read your newsletter the first time. But you can trust yourself to co-create with whatever is going to show up. And again, you don't always know what's going to show up. So it's trusting yourself with being uncomfortable and being surprised and being willing to be delighted, because there were so many times like we kept going to the edges and I was delighted. Same thing in my business. There's times where it's really uncomfortable. Sometimes the video, lots of people would watch it and I was really delighted. And sometimes it felt like it was echoing out into the abyss, right? So again, in your business, it's like you're not going to know everything about every marketing strategy. It's not about like going to Guatemala. We couldn't get all the information and be prepared for every single thing. Same thing in your business. You can't know everything about every marketing strategy. Just like going on that trip to Guatemala, it's like once you're in it, it's a dance, right? I always say that business is an experiment and that you're dancing through the experiment, because you really are. It's like we're dancing this direction. This is working. Oh, now it's not working. All right, we're going to change in a different direction. And then you got to experiment, right? And experiment and say, what do I need to do now? And you have to get really comfortable with experimenting, with dancing, with trying things and they work, trying things and they don't work, trying things that used to work and now they don't work again. That's really popular right now, really happening a lot. And so, one of the things you can do is to get help, right? Just like I got help in Guatemala, started talking to people. You can get help and start, doing things like hiring a virtual assistant, hiring a coach, hiring a coach who is a guide, who's helped others before you and they've gone before you. That's really important, that you don't have to do it. You don't have to go to your edges alone. So I'm really curious about your edges. I'm curious where your next edge is. Is it to start writing and publishing a newsletter? Is it to hire some help, hire a virtual assistant to help you get that website done? Or more importantly, I've heard a lot of you lately have websites, but now you've got more information about your soul tribe and your ideal client, and you need to make some changes on your website. And that original web designer is long gone, so now you need to find the new person to help you. Or maybe you need to hire a coach to help you so that you don't have to go on this journey alone, right? You don't have to go through the JoyFear alone. A big part of being a joyful business owner where you really want to be doing meaningful work, a big part of your marketing strategy is sharing your voice, right? Sharing what you believe in, sharing your opinions, right? Your philosophy, showing up with your own unique particular brand essence that is different than maybe the next person, who does something similar to what you do. You each do it in a different way. That is a big edge. Putting your voice out there, putting your unique twist on things is exciting, and also it's scary, right? That's where the JoyFear really sits for a lot of people. Being willing to be seen and be visible is another edge that so many of my clients go to, is how are you willing to be seen? And here's the thing, each time you stretch, I've gone to Guatemala, I've gone this year alone, I've gone to Costa Rica, Guatemala, and I'm going to Mexico. So I don't have quite as much fear around Central America, right? And traveling internationally after COVID, like there's so many stretch points, right? The same thing happens in your business. You find all these places where you dare to stretch and the rubber band never goes back to the same place, right? It's like you can't take that stretch back, right? And so you're always going to be finding the next place. And the growth edge that you went to is going to get you to the next growth edge and the next growth edge. And I know, and this is how you grow a business. You don't just create the business and just sit there and do it day in and day out. I mean, maybe a few people do, but even, your traditional insurance companies or accountants, like they still have to grow their business and get new clients, right? And so it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in. It's like you're always having to get new clients and look at new ways of showing up and looking at, well, what's working now and what didn't work before. So again, you're always going to be bumping up against growth edges. Maybe the amount of money you made last year, you want to make more money. So that means what you here is not going to get you there. So you got to build on what you've experienced. So it's so fascinating to be able to identify those growth edges and then get the help you need to support you so that you can keep going to those growth edges and keep growing. Because as you grow, your business is going to grow. So it is both an inside job and the outside job. All right. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today about going to the edges and JoyFear. And this really will help you in your business. I'd love to continue this conversation. I'd love to hear about your growth edges. If you feel like it, you want to share your growth edges, please email me or you can message me. My contact information is on this page, and you can always message me on Facebook. Or you can join in at the Facebook community. It's called Joyful Business Community. It's a Facebook group. And we have lots of conversations about going to your edges. All right, so I'm going to wrap up today. One last invitation is that you can go over to my website. I do have a free gift for you. It's called Activate Your Abundance Toolkit. And I have this really great meditation for connecting in with the universal abundance current, realizing that there is abundance all around you. and being open to receive that abundance, just what we were talking about. And then there's a 7-day journal about co-creating with the universe. You can go to joyfulbusiness.com to get that. All right, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please let me know. All right, and I'll see you next time. All right, thanks so much. Thank you for watching this episode of Joyful Business TV. I want to invite you to get more creative strategies and support for growing your business. You can start right now by activating your abundance mindset with a really powerful creative visualization that will help you get into the universal abundance current, one of my favorite things to do. And you'll also get a companion 7-day journal that will help you create a daily habit of co-creating with the universe. These are 2 powerful resources that you can get started right now to help grow your business and activate that abundant mindset. You just go over to activateabundancegift.com.